Alex Merklinger's Mysteries of the Mind. And now your host, Alex Merklinger.
As you all know, Cliff Webbott is our guest tonight. And Cliff has asked if any of you out there have questions, and I know because I hear from hundreds of you, would you please email me immediately? Because tonight Cliff said not only does he have some updates for us on his new run, but he will answer, now this is Cliff talking, he will answer any questions that you might have. The question is, how's he going to answer them? But anyway, any questions you have, Cliff Webbott will answer them for us tonight. We have reached a decision, my friends, and I do hope you understand, and I hope you will honor it, but I am going to stop broadcasting for a while. There are many, many things that we have to do, personal and business. This week, this whole week, will be my last live broadcast for a while. I do not know how long it will be. God bless you, girls. Hang on, everybody. I'm trying to do this right as we start off, because on the other end of this string is our dear friend, good friend, compatriot, and every other thing I can think of, Cliff Webbott. Yay, Cliff! How you doing, my friend?
Doing fine.
Can you hear me pretty good?
Yeah, this is good, yeah.
Okay, great. And, Cliff, I called out for people to send some questions in, and I hope I'm not putting you on the spot, because people, every time you're on, I literally get hundreds of questions, but they always do it after the show. Oh, ask Cliff this, ask Cliff that. And I write back and say, he's not here now. What do you think, he lives with me?
Right.
No, he doesn't live with me. He has his own place. As crazy as that sounds. But anyway, so we have we have a lot of stuff that I'm going to kind of throw at you. I don't know, Cliff, if I mentioned it to you, but I just finished announcing tonight that because of a lot of personal things I have to do, and I think because of the job that Ardith and I have done for the past 4 or 5 years, that our goal has been met, where we have opened up a lot of knowledge, information, and truth to people, that I'm going to stop broadcasting live for a while. We will have all of our reruns or archives up, and as many as I can find, because I have literally over 5 years. It's probably 7 years of broadcasting. Many of them have been lost, but not all of them. And we truly have some classic shows, including all of yours, because everything you tell us is classic.
Well, I appreciate that. I don't know how much is worth paying attention to, but yeah. Well, this is good for you, I'm sure.
Well, it is, Cliff. There's just so much that truly has to be done, and I feel that I wasn't doing my show justice, my listeners justice, because if I didn't have the opportunity and time to put in for the preparation, the shows, to my way of thinking, suffered. Even though I got some wonderful, wonderful messages from people all over the world saying, you know, this is the greatest show, blah, blah, blah. But so we are going to stop broadcasting live for a period of time, and I don't know what that period will be, but we will keep in touch with all of our people. But in the meantime, my friend, you have been doing more work on your run.
A great deal of it, yes.
Do you ever get a break in between runs?
Occasionally, yeah. It does work out that we'll get, when the data is just being sucked in and processed by the servers, I get maybe 4 or 5 days that I get to do something else and not have to think about that, yes.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
And that's once a month, or
once every 7 or 8 weeks, probably.
That's absurd. But anyway, that I understand what you're going through and how important it is, Cliff. The runs that you are doing, geez, that sounds awful, doesn't it? The runs.
I never even think of it. It's like it's just not an issue. What we're doing is, well, think of it the other way. We've got a giant data sucking operation.
Oh, God. I won't touch that for anything.
Okay.
what and where have the runs that you've been doing now, what is coming out?
Well, as might be expected, all kinds of things relating to economics and pressure on resources. Of course, things, pressure coming from weather and earthquakes and these kind of things.
Well, does it show, Cliff, any more indication, because you and I have talked on the air and off the air, about the potential for a major earthquake in California? Although you have never come out and said, California, all you do is say that the indications are a major earthquake somewhere in the world, right?
We try and get as much as we can geographically, because ultimately that would be our goal, but we've got to be real careful, of course, because we're more often wrong than not, so I wouldn't want to send everybody scurrying off just because they happen to foolishly believe me for a minute. So we're very careful about the geography aspect of it,
right.
And again, we also have to consider how our source works. We get literally millions of geographic and numeric references. So we, as a rule, screen those out. And we're looking for geographic descriptors that arise at an archetypical level that, if you will, is beyond the conscious expression of everybody's fears. So just because everybody fears that the earthquake's going to be in California is the very reason that I go ahead and disregard it insofar as our work is concerned. I think their fears are justified. I think California eventually will have a very large earthquake. But our work doesn't go that direction. Rather, we ran into the issue of take the recent, or rather how do I want to say it, the fulfillment, if you will. I hate to use that word, but
right.
hit, if you're, I'm more inclined to say that, where we've had a situation in January of this year, we said, oops, there's our typical language suggesting that there's going to be a city that's going to go sink into the mud from which the bricks came, and another city that's going to go sliding down a hill. Now, at the time, we defined city as you and I might think of a city, because that's sort of what we're doing, although city is merely the top word in a whole long list of words that mean something close emotionally. And one of those, the way it actually came out in the text that linked up to city, was mountain of people.
Mountain of people?
Right. So that's how archetypically a city is defined within the structure of how language is taken at an emotional level. And thus, that's a little bit on the vague side. However, I would ask people to grant us at least that this most recent earthquake episode in Kashmir, where we had a mountain of people go sliding down a hill, and the earlier situation where we had a mountain of people, 1.3 or more million people, go under the water in New Orleans, were indeed the expression of the language precursors we saw back in January.
Yeah. Cliff, and I hate to put you on a spot like this, but in your what's the term? Predictions or whatever.
Forecasts.
Forecasts. Okay.
We think of it as like weather forecasting.
Okay. In the forecasting over the years that you have done it, and I will accept that when you and I were on the air several times ago, you mentioned the number 13 million people. It came out 1.3 million were evacuating New Orleans.
Correct.
I would say that's a hit.
So would I, simply because now we know decimals don't come through.
Right. In all of the major forecasts that you have done starting before 9/11, what do you think your percent of hits, even partial hit or hit, have been? What percent accuracy?
Well, if we were to look at it, we can look at it two different ways.
Okay.
If we were to just take and plot these all off on a spreadsheet and give them each an identifier, a single label, and then take out all of the main events, we'd have to say, well, you're 100%. That is to say, at some level, some of the words we use to describe each pending event, if you will, in a forecast, were used and came back to us with appropriate meaning at the time that that event occurred. So, for instance, we had military accident before 9/11 because we weren't modeling the word terrorism.
Right.
This is the failing of our technology. If we don't put it in there, we can't find it.
Okay.
Pattern recognition kind of stuff, right?
Right.
Okay, then we had the issue of the sniper. Everybody's running around saying loony white guy in a white van, and we were saying, no, two black guys. There's one lighter skinned than the other. One sits as a servant in relation to the other. One guy has this association to the globe with wings and so on, which turned out to be a military insignia, and that they were involved somehow with the Muslims. So in both cases, we had words that actually fit the developing circumstances. So at that level, I'd say that, well, we're 100% on with some of these big things. On the other hand, we did, it's not like it's directly on. Let's take, for instance, we kept seeing for a long time a disaster at sea. Mm-hmm. Big disaster at sea, big disaster at sea. Well, in a weird kind of a way, it turned out to be the Columbia Space Shuttle disaster because, of course, Columbia, gem of the ocean.
Ah, okay,
and so the limitations of the technology are shown.
Interesting, because, as you said, retrospect is always 20/20.
Right.
But your information has not been wrong. It's the interpretation that is off.
Correct.
Well, see, that's why I say that's pretty accurate. When you consider Jean Dixon, who is by some people regarded as a wonderful psychic, I think she's less than 10% accurate in what she comes up with. It's probably less than that, too. So when you look at the work that the WebBot runs are producing, that's impressive.
I felt it was worth continuing.
I guess so. So with that in mind, Cliff, what would you say right now are the major events that we might be confronted with, let's say, and maybe, I don't know how you break it down, in the next 6 months, in the next year, how would you define the time periods that you're able to produce some ideas?
We have a tendency to see everything in blocks of emotional attachments to words rising or falling. So, in a sense, we don't divide time into weeks, months, days, or so on, and that's been one of our failings. I can get back to that in a minute. But we divide time into periods of building emotional tension and periods of emotional release. So a real easy way to figure this is to look at how it is a habit of humans, especially English-speaking humans, but pretty much ubiquitous, to try and, in the past, after they're long gone, label decades. Try and put a single emotional identifier on the decades, right? Like the Roaring 20s, the pumped-up 90s, or whatever. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to encapsulate an emotional feeling that was, if you will, a group consensus feeling. So in our work, what we're trying to do is to capture that in a near real-time basis, these feelings as they emerge. We won't go into why I even got started in this, but at one point I had an observation that about 2 years into the official, that I thought our time was all off. In other words, the decade of the 90s really didn't start in 1990. Started in 1992. And in 1991, as we went through the Desert Storm Gulf War I, we were ending a